Yes, well, Deputy Leader, Labour Leader Angela Rayner has been criticised for saying police should shoot terrorists first and ask questions second. Rayner admitted she was quite hardline on crime, also stating that I want you to beat down the door of the criminals and sort them out and antagonise them.
Antagonise them? What does she mean by that, do you think?
Yeah, I mean...
Because that's a bit like, you know, beat that guy's door down, you know. Like it's not the most kind of woke language, is it?
No. Well, joining us now for more on this is former Met Detective Chief Inspector Peter Kirkham. Thank you for joining us this morning, Peter. I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about recently, now I have my own personal views on this, but I know the Labour Party have been effectively saying that the police are institutionally racist in other instances, and then now on this instance saying that they should be beating down the doors of criminals and antagonising them. Isn't that a bit contradictory?
Yeah, it's the sort of nonsense that politicians come out with from time to time. The same as the sort of shoot to kill and shoot first, ask questions later nonsense. They haven't thought it through. They've never been there in that position where they're pointing a gun at someone and about to take their life. That is not a pleasant place to be. It is hugely stressful. And the last thing you want to do is be shooting first and asking questions later if you can possibly avoid it.
Yeah, what do you think this is? Just a cynical attempt to try and make the public believe that she cares about law and order?
I wouldn't like to comment on whether it's cynical, but certainly naive. It's obviously the intention of any politician that's saying these sorts of things that they're trying to sell themselves as being hard on crime. But like I say, it's naive the way that they go about it. I really wish the Labour Party would actually grow up a bit. They have an underlying thing still from the old student politics of, you know, the pigs, you know, don't have anything to do with them, man, and all this sort of thing. And it doesn't really fit in the Labour left-wing sort of world. They have a real difficulty with it. If they grew up and actually thought about it, policing has a role to play, no matter what the stripe of the government. And they could make a far, far more positive view of policing if they sat down and spoke to someone who knows what they're talking about, ran their ideas past them and listened to the ideas that came the other way. The police need to be more attached to communities. That, to me, more in line with communities, more engaged with communities, that to me strikes me as something that the Labour Party's all about. They just need to give it some thought and not just come up with a knee-jerk reaction to these sorts of things.
Exactly. I mean, it is a strange one. There is, again, a bit of hypocrisy, isn't there? Because Labour does try to claim that it's all about, you know, diversity and inclusion and this, that and the other. When actually you look at who a lot of the victims are, of certainly in the London's knife crime epidemic, for example, they are ethnic minorities a lot of the time, and you would have thought that really it'd be like things like the violent crime that they'd want to crack down on. But actually, one of the things that really did for Cressida Dick regarding Sadiq Khan was, you know, texts that were they were disgusting text messages, of course they were, but, you know, of a misogynistic nature and things like that. Well, you know, there have been young black and Asian men being slaughtered on the streets of our capital on an unrelenting basis now for a very long period of time. I can hardly remember him saying anything about
that. Exactly. This has been a crisis that has been unfolding, a disaster that's been unfolding in slow motion for at least a decade now. The government have been told about it. They've been told the sorts of things that are needed to make a difference, and they have cut the police. They haven't increased the police funding, and they haven't increased funding of youth services, of education, of housing, of mental health, especially CAMS, child and adolescent mental health. They haven't done any of the things that they need to do that are way beyond the power of the police, and the police have been left struggling to pick up the pieces amongst everything else they have to do. Now, that has led to all sorts of morale and mental health problems within the police service, and I'm sure to a certain extent it's led to some of the things that we're seeing and hearing about now. dark humour, sick humour is something that we know people use to let off steam in various circumstances. So, some of it, not necessarily all of it, may come from there. But the government need to fund the police to deliver the policing that they and the public have decided they want. If the public and the government want something that they're not willing to pay for, it ain't going to happen. There are only 24 hours in the day, and there are only as many cops as there are in the box. There's not an endless number that you can keep drawing on. So you get the police service you, the government, are willing to pay for. And unfortunately, that is not the police service of the standards and the quality and the speed and the everything that we're always hearing the police criticised about. They're not paying for a service that can deliver that.
No, and actually there were huge calls for defunding the police, wasn't there? That's going to be interesting. I've never quite understood that, really. You defund the police, and then you expect them to tackle crime. But look, we've got to park it there, unfortunately, Peter. But I'll be getting you back on very soon, hopefully, former Detective Chief Constable there, Inspector. Peter Kirkham.
Yeah, I mean, I do really think that if you thought the police were institutionally racist and targeting young black men, as it's often framed, then would you really want them storming into people's homes? And, I'm very sceptical of the idea that the police are institutionally racist, but maybe that's another conversation.
Yes, indeed. Or maybe she just wanted them to storm into Downing Street. Maybe that's actually what she was referring to.